recorder.
And then it takes.
Are you
a couple
recording,
seconds.
John? Okay.
Okay. We will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for attending the Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, City of Windom Council meeting. Tonight, the council has before them a consent agenda that, actually, before the consent agenda, I would like to add one item that is on as an action item tonight, because this is sensitive to application deadline, and we'd like to get working on it. That is the, it's a relief community forestry grant that actually is specified kind of targeting emerald ash borer replacement and whatnot. And I'd like to add that to new business if the council would agree with that. Okay, that'll be considered added. Okay, now with that, we have the consent agenda, which includes the council minutes of August 1st, Utility Commission, July 26th, Joint Government Meeting, July 31st, Park and Rec Commission, August 9th. License and permits include the amplification permit, American Lutheran Church, worship at Lions Pancake Feed, September 10th of 2023. Also included are the regular bills. Council wish to take action.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda with that addition under new business.
I'll second it.
Okay, and motion by Jenny, second by Scott. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Department heads. Everybody's got their spot on the agenda for tonight, I believe. Okay, we are moving right along to Windom Area Health. We have two hot seats there, gentlemen, so. Yeah. All right. Introductions, please. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I'm Todd Hagan from Ehlers and Associates from beautiful downtown Roseville, and I am the city's municipal advisor, so registered under the SEC to listen to your wants and needs for bonding projects, and then give you as many options as I can, so you all can make an educated decision on the route we want to take to proceed with financing. So you all know John, CFO from the hospital. So we had a lot of meetings with the hospital board to go through a lot of the options. And so you folks here tonight, the city is you're kind of seeing what we've come up with, basically. So we spun their heads a little bit over there, and I can give you a little bit of background of sort of where we've been and where we are tonight. So in front of the council, though, I have a pre-sale report, and you've seen those before, those folks that have been on the council before. We start a bond issue out with just kind of a story of kind of the terms and conditions, you know, what the project is about, sort of the path we're going to take as far as issuing the bonds. And then after that, of course, even during that, you guys folks can ask questions of me as well, but sort of the action we're going to be looking for tonight are two resolutions that are separately attached to your agenda. One is then to allow Ehlers to kind of get going and package this up and try to sell this to banks. Look for a placement agent as well to cast a broader net in case some of the banks that we're looking at right now will have some trouble packaging that up and getting to the finish line. And then there's also a resolution that calls for a public hearing. I think September 5th we're looking at that because the hospital is Sanford manages the hospital. It's a 501c3 entity. The city owns it. They operate it under federal law. That we'd have to have a hearing. We've done this before, just on the project itself, and they're called qualified 501c3 bonds. So this is a lot different than the bonds the city normally issues for a street utility project, where they're general obligation bonds. We sort of sell these out into the market. We get a bond rating, right, of your general obligation, your full faith and credit, and taxing powers. This is different. It's a different kind of bond. It's a bond that's a qualified 501c3 bond. It's not a general obligation bond. It's what we call a gross revenue bond, and so it's heavily looked at by the folks that will be purchasing this bond. The revenues will be a very important factor in their review, and giving us an interest rate on that. The gross revenue bond part of this means that the city, the bonds are paid before operation and maintenance, so it's a little easier test to make for a bondholder and the covenants. So if there's any shortfall after that, the city can appropriate their own money to help pay the bonds. So it's kind of what we call a backdoor general obligation bond. So revenues first, and folks can decide if you want to continue to support the hospital. You folks can kind of support it that way, basically, if there's a shortfall in any year for debt service payments. So that's sort of the bond issue rundown of what we're looking at. So the path that we took before this was to see if we could talk to the USDA, rural development, to see if those folks would like to purchase the bond after an interim construction bond phase. So we would need pre-authorization from the federal government, the USDA rural development, go through sort of their process to get pre-approved for that loan. And it's a low interest rate, lower than market rate interest. They go out longer. You don't have to go out as long as 40 years. You can go 30, you can go 20. So many municipalities have used that avenue as something that's advantageous to them. The unfortunate part of that, we had all sorts of the federal folks on the phone, conference calls and things like that, and John and his team were nice enough to kind of get everything together to at least see if that's an option for us. And of course, it's a slower process, and the hospital wants to get kind of moving on this as soon as possible, to get moving throughout the winter. They want to do some demo this fall and start moving with, and knowing that they've got financing in place for the winter and then the spring. So we got a sort of, maybe we could commit to the long-term loan in September, but it didn't feel like that was a real possibility, so we didn't want to go down that path. And then if we wait till next year, we're not sure, what their funding looks like with the USDA. So we just decided to kind of put that idea off to the side, just because, again, sort of the speed we want to kind of move forward with here. Because the hospital doesn't want to move forward too fast with their project, not knowing that their financing isn't in place. I got that. That's what we're really sort of worried about. Then we were talking about sort of temporary bonds and taxable bonds and those types of things, because the city has some electric utility bonding coming up, maybe some liquor store funding as well. So we wanted to take a look at to make sure that what the tax exempt sort of market looks like as far as bank qualification. So or taxable bonds, and so we did kind of shake that tree quite a bit to see what the best avenue would be for both of these bond issues, not harming either one, but having both the city's project financings and the cities through the hospital's project financing go along kind of on the same path as far as taxable, tax exempt, bank qualified. So there's a bank qualification limit. The feds give us $10 million per calendar year to be able to put a stamp of bank qualification on the bond issues, and most of the time we're under that. But projects are pretty expensive these days, and it's pretty easy for a municipality to get up against that or go over it. School districts, for sure, with their financings are very expensive to put up their facilities. So we took a look at that to see what the difference is between bank qualification tax exempt bonds and just tax exempt bonds. So just to kind of back up, a bank qualified bond gives a bank the ability to not only give us a tax exempt rate, but also a bank qualified rate, which means that they're able to deduct at least 80% of their carrying cost that they kind of charge themselves to buy a bond. They can deduct that, right? So it's not only tax exempt interest, but bank qualification most of the time lowers the interest rate even more. But what we're seeing in this sort of wacky world of interest rates right now, for lack of a better word, is rates aren't following the normal course of what we normally see. As a matter of fact, they don't start low and get high. They start low, or they start a little higher and then get low and get a little higher. So there's an inverted yield curve there. So it doesn't go like this, it goes like this now. And also, we're seeing in the market that there's virtually no difference from what our analysts tell us between bank qualified bonds, tax exempt bonds, and just plain tax exempt bonds. So we looked at all of that and have decided to take this bond out 20 years as a non-bank qualified tax exempt bond. Okay, so we figured that all out, as well as the city's electric and liquor store bonds too. We're going to go forth that way as well. So we're not bound by that $10 million limit. We can go over that with just plain tax exempt bonds. So I think that's a good thing for the city's bonds, even though rates are higher than we're normally used to seeing, right? A few years ago, rates have gone up for everybody. It's nice to see that the spread isn't really going to affect us as far as that's concerned. So that's a lot of talk about sort of the bond issue, but that's what I'm here for, right? Is to kind of let everybody know the path we're going to take. And I know in 2014 we issued some smaller bonds out into the market, and that took a while to do that. And so we not only had to line up an underwriter, we had to get a lot of these offering documents drafted and prep to go out and find like individual bondholders. So we're going to try to cut that that sort of schedule down a little bit and have. We're going to still go out and try to find an underwriter, which would be a placement agent to cast a broader net on the banks we know are interested right now, because we've talked to a few. And we're going to go for more of a bank financing this time. So we'll see what happens. So I've kept this pre-sale report very flexible. I've used the words approximately, and I've put some higher dollar figures like in the notices and parameters, resolutions, and things like that, just to keep us sort of as flexible as possible, because we're not sure exactly what we're going to get. So we want to make sure that we look at everybody's ideas, and then we can pick one as we go forward. So John's here to answer any questions about the project itself and timing and things like that. So I think my high points for the pre-sale report, I've talked about sort of where we've been and where we're going, what path we're going to take for the bond issue. So for you, the council. One of the big things we're going to be looking at here is, and you've done this before, is we're going to, in this resolution, we're going to establish a pricing committee, and we've done that before. So not only will we have a public hearing on September 5th, September 19th, we'll sort of come back to the council and hopefully have a purchaser and a good rate that we can all live with. So in the meantime, we need some flexibility from the council to give us sort of the go-ahead to move forward with a group, which would consist of the city administrator and the mayor or a council member, John, the CFO of the hospital, and me and my team is to after I send out an RFP for the placement agent to find a purchaser. We want the authority from the council to have that group to have the authority to go ahead and pick that firm and then see what purchasers or banks that we get, and we want to be able to pick that bank too with that committee and within certain parameters, and then come back on September 19th with the bond resolution to kind of wrap this up as far as the council approval. So we've done this before, in Windom on your broadband bonds and the hospital bond in 2014. And, we think this works really well, so that way we don't bother the council all the time and come back with all sorts of confusing things for you to look at. So the parameters that I have picked are generous, but we do need flexibility here. We're going to pick the bank with the lowest true interest cost or the lowest interest rate. That's sort of a no-brainer. And they're going to follow our term sheet here as best they can, whether it be a 20-year or a 10-year with a 20-year amortization with a reset now and then. We'll just see whatever the market feels they can give us. We're going to make a decision based off of that. And then we've got a not to exceed bond amount of $20,500,000. And I know that's larger than what's on the pre-sale report, but we want the flexibility because we don't know what fees they're going to charge as well. And we just want to make sure that just be able to not get sort of locked in on a fee or an interest rate, but we want to make sure that we see the whole package. And it's important to see the whole package and not just get hung up on a fee or an interest rate. And we want to be able to compare everybody equally as well. So we've got local banks here already going to be sort of online. We've got a few in outstate Minnesota that we've been talking to already per the city administrator's recommendation. And then again, we're going to cast a broader net, including those folks, just to make sure that we come back with a lot of different looks at what this is going to be. So I just wanted to let you know that it's a little out of the ordinary, these kind of bonds, and they we tell a story when we issue these kind of bonds. We got to tell a story about the hospital, about the expansion, about revenues past and revenue projections on into the future, and anything else that they want to ask us. So it's a lot of back and forth, and John and his team has already kind of felt that coming, and so that's what we're looking at. So I'll yield to the council if you have any questions from me. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Yep.
And we do have councilmen and women who maybe have not been through this process before. And I have a few questions of my own that I'd like to ask, just
Sure.
in reference to some of your previous comments. Can you tell me how much the outstanding of the 2014 bonds is, or John can, and if that affects anything on this current bond?
It's just under 4 million, and that is complete, I believe, in about 7 years. And no, it would not affect this at all.
No. We, just to get more technical on that, this bond would be on what we call a parity lien with that bond. So we have to, under the prior trust indenture of 2014, we have to meet certain tests for that to be valid. And we just want to make sure that this bond is going to look like that bond, basically, as if there were one bond. Yep.
Some questions regarding the actual resolution, and in your pre-sale information here, you have that a public hearing is required.
Yep.
Correct? Okay, and that is September 15th. 5th.
Yeah.
And then the official adoption of that, of the sale would be on the 19th of September?
On or about.
Okay. And so, on or about, correct?
Yeah.
And at that public hearing, we can take testimony from the public for or against this. And can, correct? And,
Yep.
and
We'll listen to them. Yep.
we'll listen to them. And I just don't want to be pre-committed prior to a public hearing. And so I want to assure that conversely, it states that the committee will make that decision and then the council will ratify it. Okay.
Correct.
Isn't that presumptuous that the council is gonna go along with that? Or is the committee actually making that decision?
The search will be in the works at that point, from tomorrow through September 9th, on or about September 19th. So we can, I see that I feel that we're probably obviously going to be waiting till after September 5th to make any decision on a purchaser for sure. I think we'll be lining up the placement agent already, which isn't any kind of commitment. It's just another kind of one like me to go out and kind of do a broader search, basically, because they're licensed to do that as underwriters without input from the council. So I think that'll work out pretty well. It's just we're sort of moving forward preliminarily. We'll establish the pricing committee tonight, and they won't, and then we'll wait until after September 5th, I think, to make a decision on the purchaser, if that helps. So we're not committing ourselves prior to the public hearing. Does that help?
I think that helps,
Yeah.
And I want the council to follow up with that. If they don't care, they can speak their piece, but I just felt it a little presumptuous that we would have a hearing when we already passed a resolution that says we're agreeing to that. That the committee is gonna pick it, so.
Yeah, so we will wait. It's going to take a couple weeks to get a placement agent. It's going to take another couple weeks to find a purchaser. So it'll be after. Yep. Good, great question.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you,
yep.
thank you. And once again, the bonds don't count against the city's debt cap of 3%,
Right.
correct? And do we know where we're at?
Boy, I tell you, it takes a lot to be subject to that. I think it's probably zero, because a lot of the bonds in the city, so there's a carve out that says it has to be a bond that's payable solely from a tax levy. And most of our bonds have like an assessment attached to them typically, or a revenue, either from the communication system or somewhere. Fire hall has even got sort of a revenue when you think about it from, contracts and things like that, participating communities. So there's not a lot, if anything, on that's subject to it.
And that question was just to clarify that, because I've been approached by members of the public that ask, well, can the city still borrow?
Yep.
If we have large projects or whatnot. And our budget season's coming up too.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right.
And so this is
Thank you.
outside of that. Yeah,
Okay.
great question again. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. That takes care of mine. Council, questions for Todd well, probably for Todd first, because John's is more specific to the project. So could we get through the funding part, and if we have questions for Todd?
I think what makes everybody squirm a little bit is the $20 million price tag. And you didn't get very far into your little talk there. You were mentioning shortfall, which is the issue that we would face. There's a significant bond reserve to this, correct?
There might be. There's a $400,000 reserve on the 2014 bond that was funded from cash, and we may or may not need one on this. Banks banks might not. The market, a public market bond would. So we're gonna try to see if we can carve some of that out or reduce it a little bit, because it's gonna be larger on a $20 million
Oh, yeah.
bond, yeah. For now, it's included, yeah,
Yeah, for now, it is included, because that's where that number came from, it's
yep,
$1,652,050.
yep. If they need that, yep, it's typically on that 2014 bond, it was based on maximum principal and interest, annual principal. So that's what that one is too, if they need it. We'll see.
And the hospital has, and we've seen significant revenues over the past few years. What is your thought on the shortfall thought, and how does the shortfall in detail affect the city of Windom?
Well, yeah, first off, it's estimated at a $30 million project, so the hospital's gonna contribute $10 million. I think in 2014 you contributed quite a bit too as well to bring that price tag down. The coverage is gonna, and I think that's what you're alluding to, is sort of the debt service coverage ratio, bond payment to available revenues. And we did an analysis on that. We did use net revenues. We don't use gross revenues. So the coverage is pretty high, 2.25 to 2.50 on a bad day. So they have real strong revenues, and that's net. So that's after O&M. So it's going to take quite a bit to bring that down to where there's going to be a concern. And so we are going to, we have past audits that will show the banks. We have, current year to date. John's going to be cranking out for me here pretty quick, and then some projections, maybe from Clifton, Larson, Allen. We'll see what we can get from those folks, because those are the questions that are going to be asked of the banks too. And we want to make sure that we're well above. I think the coverage only has to be 1.2 times per the trust indenture of 2014, so we're way over that. That I bring that up though in my presentation because that's a risk. It's a risk, and we need some backing on this. And I think the communication bonds too had some sort of appropriation, sort of backing from the enterprise funds just in case. And it's all about marketing, but it is going to be in the documents, and it is a risk that could be hit upon at some point. I would imagine we go to the reserve first, right? And then we try to reevaluate the revenues of the hospital in time to not only replenish the reserve, but to go forward with, a really good coverage ratio again. So I think it would be pretty far down the road. I don't have a crystal ball until all of a sudden we'd be asking the council for an appropriation. Yeah. Yep.
And maybe this for John too. Is there any sense that it wouldn't be like bonding your future for the next 10 years?
I would say not, and the reason is when we worked with Clifton, Larson, Allen on the financial modeling, like Todd said, our debt service coverage is well over 2, so that's very significant, very positive. So we could pay these bonds currently at double the rate, so to speak. That model was extremely conservative, and partly conservative because we are in such a strong financial position right now. So that model was showing only 2% growth in gross revenues, and also only a 2% in investment income as well. So those being the key dollars in there, it's a relatively conservative projection for that model. So as Todd is saying, you'd have to have many years of sustained poor financial performance for it to ever be an issue.
There isn't any thought that maybe some of those COVID funds is skewing that number a little bit, or not?
No, I don't believe so. Even Last fiscal year, we had over $4 million just from operations, and that didn't include any COVID funds. This year, we're going to show another positive bottom line, million something more than likely. And as we've talked at previous meetings with the investments we're making right now, we anticipate our growth to be much higher than that 2% as we move forward.
And we have, to your point on COVID, we see that there was, we see the line item where that was, and it did bump that up quite a bit, 2022 and 2021. So we've backed that out of that projection. I think one other advantage to go to the banks, and I really hope somebody steps up to the plate, is that we'd be able to renegotiate with them a lot easier than the public market, where you've got some hardline documents and you've got bondholders that are all over the nation and world maybe. So, but the 2014 bond is that way, which is fine. It's a smaller bond. It's got a pretty good interest rate on it, and it's moving right along just fine. So this is a larger one. And so I think another advantage to go to banks is the ability to maybe do that too. Yep.
Would it, I'm new to all this, so just be
Sure.
patient with me here. Now, with you owing money already and you wanting to borrow more money, is that gonna scare any banks away from what your ability to pay both loans back at the same time type of thing? And during your construction phase, is that gonna scare any banks away because you wanna tear down before you got your finances in place?
I don't anticipate either of those two topics of being issue. The first one of the remaining bonds, that yearly payment isn't that significant compared to our revenues, and if we needed to, we could pay that off today. But it's at a favorable interest rate, so we're actually earning more money on our investment having it in the bank than paying it off. But if it needed to be, that could be eliminated. In terms of having financing in place before the building comes down, I don't see that being an issue either. We're actually getting the commitment before that would happen. So when we talk about the date of September 19th or approximately, that's awarding the sale of the bonds. So that would be the commitment date. The building wouldn't come down before that date.
Yeah. Good questions. The board just talked about that at their last meeting that I had attended. So that's a timely question and a good one. The debt service coverage ratio we talked about takes into account those two stacked a little bit at the beginning. So, yeah.
Thank you for that question, Scott. I was going to ask this actually the same thing, because it was probably 2 weeks ago I told Shelby, why are you advertising prior to having your funding in place? And I wasn't in favor of it, and that's what I said. That was my opinion. But you know, there are probably I still don't like it. Your funding should always come first before you buy your baby another pair of shoes. So I think I understand it, and I'm sure it's not the first time that you've came across this, Todd. So,
Well, sometimes you just have to react, right, to what's kind of out there. So I think we're all kind of doing that right now, and we're doing the best we can to move it forward. So,
and I think that's where the council's at too.
yeah.
You know, and Dennis, did you have questions? You have your button going off?
Yeah, that was.
All right. I'm done talking for the night.
Yeah, everything I've read before tonight and everything I've been hearing now is we're not going to fully commit to this until September 19th. If we have a bunch of people that scare us off when we have a public hearing, we can still say no, right?
Yep. Correct.
Thank you.
Council, other questions or comments?
I guess a lot of things that, of course, I don't understand it all either, but when you start talking money, so many people just hear, they're selective hearing, just like my wife. She only hears what she hears. And taxes is gonna scare the heck out of everybody. It all is. And I certainly don't wanna stick my neck out and say that, because I don't really get chopped. But anyway, so I think that that's why, when we have that public hearing, I would like to have as many people as possible here to really get into this, because, and I apologize to my wife, I shouldn't have probably said that, because I know she's listening. But, yeah, it's just, it's mind-boggling, is what she told me, it's mind-boggling, that kind of money, and to try to just, I think it's a fantastic idea to have all the specialty clinics and so forth, because she was just trying to make one today with a doctor, and really she could get in the last part of October if she goes to Sioux Falls. Well, she gets in over to Worthington on the 31st of this month. So I mean, it's probably not soon enough, but as soon as she could. So you know, I think that the specialty clinics, especially on the end of it, are going to really benefit the town. So.
Thank you, Jim. And I think that's, you know, part of what I've been hearing from the public so far. I think they need the opportunity to speak. I'm glad that was in there, because we hear comments that I don't know if they're true, accurate. You know, it's based on opinions from the public. And, you know, I'm happy to see so many members of the hospital board here tonight. I appreciate that, because that was going to be a question if they weren't back here. And so thank you for attending tonight. I guess one thing, and I know that it doesn't have anything to do with each other, but you know, public reaction that I've heard is, wow, we're asking the state of Minnesota for $14 million, and now we're going to do a bond issue of $20 million. The two are not really in the same ballpark. Okay, that's different, but that's a question. I'm just saying that I'm hearing from public, and they when they happen simultaneously, you get that understanding. So I'm looking for any more comments from the council before the council moves forward here. Questions for John about the project too, Scott?
I know, I was looking at your financial, and you guys made a profit of $7 million, and the portion you pay City of Windom, can that ever be renegotiated? As far as you guys paying us $10,000?
Yeah, there can be discussions anytime on that.
Because I've had some people come up to me about that price, and
Yeah,
if you guys are making so much, why are we getting so little?
yeah. I think, you know, that will be a good debate and a good discussion, because there's so many angles to that too. Because the other, being in healthcare as long as I have been working for community hospitals, the other side of that is, why is my hospital expense going to the city? You know what I mean? So, yeah, so there's a lot of good discussions related to that.
Thank you for that question, Scott. I think one thing that I will say is that's the one thing this council has, is the authority through the budget, is when we approve the annual budget, the city council can put comments in at that time and make that a condition approving the budget. That's your guidance, this council right here, next year. So keep that in mind. I'm already getting nervous. So, but it is something that you can reflect on, bring back and have that discussion. And the question, if you wanted to look at that, yeah, I think I'll leave that for a later time. That'd be a good thing to do. That's a budget time thing. Jim?
There was one other thing, the last time you folks were here, I'd asked, how is the city gonna profit from this? And Shelby had said, well, you have your x-ray and your lab and so forth. That belongs to the city, but also if you close your clinic down here and move them out there, I know that they have x-ray and lab with them. That would make, if it was with me, I would say, well, let's use our own, so would that still stand as far as our lab and x-ray? So, I mean, I'm not saying get rid of your lab or your x-ray. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying so that we, have something to kind of think about also there. And that was part of the, I guess.
Jim, are you talking about the Sanford Clinic?
Yep.
Okay, and if that moves to become part of the hospital, then we're gonna lose that. It'll go into a tax exempt facility.
Mm-hmm.
Sanford would be renting space in the new building for their clinic space, but they would be utilizing the hospital's lab and x-ray services. So there wouldn't be a duplication of service then, like there is now.
That was gonna be my next thing, because I've heard that they absolutely would move out there, is what, who you hear it from, that it's like many opinions, and that's it. But I'm sure that they probably would rather be out there rather than be down here.
Yeah,
But
we have a letter of intent from them to rent space
So-
in the new MOB.
So then that building down there is gonna be empty. So, like Dominic was saying, it's another tax issue there. So, anyway,
Okay, any other questions? We're getting to the action time to our council members. Our tonight would be the resolution that's right up there, calling for a public hearing on the proposed issuance of private activity bonds to finance healthcare facilities.
I'll introduce that resolution.
I would second.
Resolution introduced by Dennis, seconded by Marv. Any discussion or questions from the council? One last call for any questions. Okay, roll call.
Esplin. Nelson.
yes,
Quaid.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
That resolution carries. Next thing would be is to, does that include the notice of public hearing, or do you want one for that?
Includes it.
Pardon me?
It'll include it.
It does include it. Okay. Okay. The resolution providing for the sale of approximately 20,130,000 of healthcare facility gross revenue bonds series 2023A.
I would introduce that resolution.
I'll second.
Resolution introduced by Marv, second by Jim. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the council?
There
Hearing
again, I just hope for the public hearing that we gotta have more chairs.
Well noted. Roll call.
Quaid.
Yes.
Esplin. Nelson.
Yes,
Grunig.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
And that carries unanimously.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
John.
and nice seeing you folks again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice seeing you. Thank you, John. Did anybody
you.
have any comments on the actual building for John? That's what you're here for too, right? The process, and is it out, it's out for bids, right, the demo? And maybe just give us a status update as of tonight.
My understanding is we received bids for phase one, which would include the demo, and those came in as expected, actually a little bit less, so that's positive. And, you know, the hope is when the project is able to get rolling, that those bid packages will go out a little bit quicker, you know, hopefully to lock in some good prices and go from there, so.
I know that lead times on a lot of more electrical equipment and that sort of thing is really time
Yeah,
consuming right
it
now.
is.
So, yeah, the way it sounds, so. Okay, thank you
Thank
both
you.
so much. Thank you once again to Shelby, Dr. Blue, can't remember your name, and all the board members. Thank you. Okay. We have the electric generation project rebid. Is Jason here going to tell us what that means?
Jason Sikora, Electric Superintendent. So, basically, in a nutshell, generation rebid means we had 0 bidders at bid opening. Pretty surprising, being we had a pre-bid meeting, construction meeting that was very well attended with five general contractors and several subs. So we had 0. We did have one of the generals that was very interested in bidding. He was at the opening. He did divulge that he was very close to having a bid put together. He just could not come up with a mechanical contractor that was willing to get the work done in the time frame. So he did share where he was at. He was pretty much right on budget with the engineer's estimate. So if he came in with his estimate on his mechanical, we would have had a on estimate bidder. So the plan was kind of to do a quick turnaround rebid, maybe point some of the bidders in directions of some of their missing subcontractors, try and get them together, and then turn it around fast enough so that the bids they did have, in quotes, from the contractors they did have were still good. So basically we turned it around yesterday. It went back up on Quest. It'll be in the Citizen on Wednesday. And then we're going to open bids again on the 29th with anticipation of having some bidders. So.
Okay. And I'm sure this has already went through your utility commission.
Yes.
And I think there's 2 steps to this. Is first of all, do we have to? Well, we didn't have any bids to reject, so all we need to do then is to rebid the project.
Correct.
Under your
Just to
terms of this.
affirm the decision to rebid it as recommended by the utility commission.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll make such a motion.
I'll second.
Motion Scott, seconded by Jim. Everybody understand that? Okay, very good. Hearing all nods. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jason. I see a lot of work on the transmission lines going on.
Yeah, I can give you an update.
Could you? Or,
Well, I'm going to come around to pay request.
He's going to come
oh,
up with paper.
yeah, we'll do it then. Thank you. Okay, next item would be we have a resolution in packet accepting dedication of street easements. The new cul-de-sac that is out between the new car wash and Dollar General. and that was some dedicated easements, perpetual easements from the two adjoining property owners. So did you want to give a briefing on that, Steve Moore?
Just so the council's aware, we talked about this project and we've had the easements in place, had the work done for them. We just hadn't gotten everything finalized to get it recorded. So that the action is coming tonight just to get it recorded. We've had all this in place, and we just want to get it recorded and realized we needed final acceptance by the council to get it recorded. So we're now jumping through that last hoop.
Sounds good. That is in the form of a resolution that was in your packet. Council wish to take action?
I would introduce the resolution.
I'll second.
That resolution affirming and accepting the dedication of street easements for the new cul-de-sac was introduced by Marv, seconded by Scott. Thank you. Jeez. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Grunig,
Yes.
Esplin,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
And that carries. Well, this is Police Department Body Camera Audit. Scott's going to come up, our chief, and he's going to, I'm sure the council read all the detail of that report. Sounds like, wow, you guys are efficient, Scott.
Scott Peterson, Police Chief. Minnesota statute stipulates that a law enforcement agency that uses body cameras have an independent audit done on their procedures every 2 years. In June, we had that done. It goes over your procedures, whether your storage of video, whether you're categorizing them right, if you're making copies of videos, if we are basically making sure that we get that out to the public and we blur so that people and protect people's privacy that weren't a part of it. We succeeded with no discrepancies. We were told beforehand that we would expect some errors that most departments do. Assistant Chief Corey Hilsheim oversaw this project, and he hit it out of the park. And we were perfect. So I'm pleased to announce that to you tonight.
Scott, one question I had. Does that include like drone video if you did anything like that?
No, that's covered under another subcategory under public records.
Of course, he knows the answer to every question we ask. Okay, good report. Council have any questions? Martin?
Why is it necessary to have an audit done?
Because the Minnesota legislature made it that way. And that's the reason. Not only did we have to report this to you folks, we had to report this to the Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, and a bunch of other folks. That's why this is done.
And Scott, should the council then accept the audit as given to you?
Yes, we would appreciate it.
I'll make a resolution to accept the audit as given.
Second.
That was a motion to approve the body cam audit as presented by Chief Peterson, by Scott, and seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you much.
Okay. Street and park camera proposal and recommendation. I couldn't see that very well in the packets, Steve, but oh, Tim's here. He's going to talk about it. Good. And John. John must be on vacation. He's in shorts tonight. Okay.
Good evening, John Ketzenberg, Streets and Parks Superintendent.
Tim Hogan, Recreation Department. So this is a recommendation from the Parks and Rec Commission, basically in regards to cameras at the Teagles Park shelter. When the previous shelter was torn down, those cameras were then taken out. We still have the used cameras, which most likely will be utilized in other areas of the city. to repurpose them. And then with the construction of the new shelter, not only getting cameras back in there, but additional ones to help with coverage, which will support not only PD, but as well as John and I for vandalism and other things that happen up at the park that we can hopefully keep our eyes on or deter people from damaging the shelter, and with rental usage and things like that, or public usage in the shelter, that we needed some updated equipment and some added equipment for that new shelter. So this is a recommendation from the Park and Rec Commission with the price tag attached that I'm sure everybody saw, $7,901.13 for the additional cameras at the shelter.
A question I had quickly is, is this the item that I recall not being budgeted for?
Correct. But no. But looking at my park budget and everything, I can absorb quite a bit of it.
Okay. I'm looking at Marv. No.
Yeah, I guess I read in the packet that you didn't have money in your funds to take care of it, and you're looking for the city to contribute to paying for it, so.
I would like the council to give us the money to do it, but like say, if we need to fall back on it for the chief and everything else to make sure the citizens are safe and our new acquired property is not damaged and destroyed before we even get to utilize it, I mean, I can scrape together some money.
Dennis, to help answer your question, he asked Steve about that, and they looked at his fund balances, and Steve said he can afford it. John said he could pay for it. All right.
So you can work it out with Steve.
I think we could do some arm wrestling over it.
Okay.
Is that the total cost then, is the 7,000, whatever it is? No other cost than that?
No, there's obviously a service fee, if maybe that's what you're getting. This is equipment cost. This is the cost of the cameras, the installation, that side of it. Obviously, we still get service costs for internet, what it takes to run the cameras. I guess there's a service fee on that side of it.
John got to pay, you get to pay that too? Or what kind of cost are you talking?
I'm not really sure because the cameras haven't been working down there for ever since the construction's been going. So I haven't seen what I've been getting charged or anything, and we've had a debate on that department head. So that's going to be kind of a hot subject topic here coming up shortly.
It's part of the discussion. It's all part of telecom and what they're getting reimbursed. And I think all departments share that cost some way, and it's delegated out. So I'm sure they'll work it out. Scott.
Now, is this tied in with the community center cameras too, or is that a separate entity?
That's all separate. This is just what basically the parks would be requesting for Teagles Park. Like I said, there is some other equipment that we can patch in, such as the rec area, to use some of those older cameras. This would just be the price tag to adequately provide security at the Teagles Park shelter and Cottonwood Lake.
And to kind of answer your question, in my budget and everything, I got data processing. I'm not sure how all that breaks down, but my budget starts off at $6,000, and I'm down to about $4,250 now. So
you got about half a year's left. Okay. Tim will take care of the other half.
So then you're okay down at the arena then?
Well, so with any addition to the about $8,000, I mean, that was the request of the commission, is that, we could potentially use city funds so we're not dipping into our current budgeted prices. Those funds for data processing, anything like that is budgeted to be used, right? So this additional 8,000, would potentially tap into or exceed what we're currently budgeted for on that note. So that's, otherwise we have to take it from a different line item, which would again sacrifice the budget that we've set for the previous year.
And I think that's with Park and Rec, what we're always looking at is they have a very small budget to begin with. They have a lot of parks and a lot of things that are in need. When we come to our meetings every month, it's constant. I mean, we have a huge list of wants of which we wish we could do, things we wish we could update. Community members that come to us saying, this should be repaired, this should be updated, you should add this, that kind of stuff. But simply, we don't have the money. And it seems like every time there's some kind of request from Park and Rec, it's like, well, find it within your own budget. Or the street department tries to make something work out of their budget. I think the 8,000 should just come out of our budget and give that to them without them having to try to scrimp every little thing that they can. This is an additional thing that we need. We're going to be gifted this, very expensive building. We need to provide, the security, we need to be able to keep it up, and we need to know if somebody damages it, who can we go after to say you are obligated to pay for these repairs, so that then those repairs don't fall upon the city as well. So I think in the long run, this is very good investment that we make in getting these cameras up and running as soon as possible.
I also agree with Jenny. It's an investment of Windom community, taking care of our community buildings, our community area, and it shouldn't fall on the Park and Rec's back to update our camera system, because it was a very old camera system, if I remember right, you guys talking about that, and it's something that needed to be updated anyway, and we wasn't getting very good camera action out of the old one, so the updated camera will help us on getting some of this stuff down and catching some of the people that have been doing the naughties out there, let's put it that way. And it is for myself, it's a needed thing for the Cottonwood County or not Cottonwood, but Cottonwood Lake and surrounding areas, because it's a beautiful area out there, and we need to do something out there. And if we fall short, then it's back on us. So I agree, it should be something funded from the city.
As long as we're bringing this up, Marv, do you have any cameras at the Memorial Park? No. Should we? I would say the same thing about that as they're saying about theirs.
I also agree. There should be something down there, because that is something that we cannot let get damaged at all, and we should have an eye on it.
And I would do it as part of this package or request. There can be at least one camera there somewhere, I would guess. And I think we should just get that rolled right in here. Maybe you can get a little better price, a couple $100. Work on them.
Well, and and we are going to be doing that. There's going to be packages coming. I mean, this is just for the Tegos Park shelter. There's going to be additional cameras potentially down at the liquor store. There's going to be additional cameras that potentially are going to go into the community center. So this is just a package for that shelter. So moving forward, if we're going to add cameras and equipment down at the liquor store, at the community center, at the memorial, hopefully this company will, work on a price point for us.
I was just wondering, is this the same company who originally did our project? Yes. It is. They sure seem a lot more expensive today.
It's a decade later, man.
I know. So that's a fact. They're a lot more expensive. My point well taken. Okay. Are we ready for a vote on this, council?
Personally, I think that the cameras are a good idea, if for nothing else, to protect the city, also. Because it'll only take one lawsuit and it's going to pay for a lot of cameras.
So I make a recommendation to accept the Park and Street camera proposal.
I'll second.
Where's the
Also
money
with-
coming from?
From the city of Windom.
Then it's from the reserve?
Gen-
Yeah, from the general fund, sorry about that. be patient with me.
The
Okay.
general fund reserve.
Second by Jim with that same. Okay, any discussion? Marv?
Well, before we commit that there's going to be a camera at the memorial site, we have to figure out if it's actually viable to do it. Because there's not fiber in that park, so it probably would have to be on Jason's new building. So,
And just to touch on that, in conversations with the company, we had also talked about a camera in the bathhouse at Conwood Lake, which also does not have fiber to it. There are wireless boosters and things, so even off of potentially Jason's service, that off that service they could put a wireless booster at the park that would just run off his building's service. That fiber potentially wouldn't have to be put into that park at that expense. That a wireless booster would be maybe a better option and a lower cost option.
Okay, I've got a comment here, council, is you've made a motion, you have a second, okay, on this for this proposal out of general fund money, okay, and that's gonna be voted on. The balance of it, I think we should challenge our department heads. We have budgets. Matter of fact, it's saying budget workshop dates. And maybe some of this should be happening during the budget workshop, and maybe all the departments could get their list together for security cameras around our city, all of our amenities that they want, and bring that as a lump sum back to the council at budget time. So, with that, let's vote on this. Voting on this, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There you go. Okay, and bring back at budget time. Everybody work together. Nope. Hey, John. Okay, the new page is out for you, John.
Just a quick comment on the last camera deal. All these departments did get individual quotes on cameras. Mine's personally waiting to see what happens with our building. So we outfitted the new design with cameras, and we're just waiting if it goes through or not, depending on what cameras I all get. So
It seems like you could get a better price if everybody's together and do a lump sum. Steve?
Yep, we've already had that discussion, cross that bridge. I've already got Freedom Security working on that, and I actually got the quote tonight before the council meeting, about 10 or 15 minutes, so
You should have
we're
said
down
this
that.
like an hour ago. All right,
I couldn't get into word in edgewise.
You're the city administrator, you have that privilege. And the mayor gets the last word. John, you're up.
John Nelson, liquor store manager. Here tonight in front of the city council to have the city council follow the liquor committee's recommendation to reject the sole bid from Susner Construction, as their base bid was significantly over our architect's estimate. Also to have give us the ability to rebid this project. As a background, on June 20th, our expansion project went out for bid. We opened bids on July 25th. We had one bidder present and only one bid was received. The bidder had all of his required bidding documents, and his base bid was $893,400. An alternate number one, which was the vestibule at the front of the building, was $145,300. And the alternate number two was $1,500 to replace the lighting on the exterior of the building that currently exists. The architect's design estimate for the base work in June of 2023 was $675,200. The base bid received was $893,400, which is 32.3% over the architect's estimate. I met with the liquor committee on August 8th, and we had the recommendation to reject the bid and authorized myself and Steve to re-advertise the bid again with cost-saving measures. The project rebidding period will open tomorrow, the 16th, with advertisement going into the Citizen. Our plan is to have bid opening on August 29th. This change will delay the start and completion date of the project by about a month. So we should still be allowed for construction this fall with this bidding window. There is no fiscal impact with this, as our agreement with TSP is to rebid due to costs coming in higher than their estimate or budgeted amount. We've already made some adjustments to the documents to make some cost savings measurements in there. We've also changed some stuff in there to try to get additional bidders interested. Our architects were pretty disappointed. They had four or five general contractors that showed a lot of interest in the project. They reached out to them afterwards, and some of them, the project was just too small for them. Some of them, timing. Others had some issues with some of the limited closures, and so we've made some of those adjustments to try to get them to bid on the project. So hopefully we can have more bids than just a single bidder that we got. So.
Okay, recommendation from the committee is to reject the current bids and to rebid the project.
I'll make a motion to reject the bid and have it rebidded the project.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Council have any questions? Just one comment. You're going to get it in the paper pretty fast for tomorrow's publication, right?
It is already in there. They emailed it or got it into the Citizen either Friday afternoon or Monday morning. It's there, ready to be in the print tomorrow. So we are good to go.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John. Okay, 2023, we have a state airport environmental assessment grant agreement. Oh my gosh, for an environmental review, they get a lot of money.
Yes, they do, Mayor. This good news is this is a 95-5 project. It'll be 90% federally funded, 5% city funded, 5% state funded. We did previously approve this when we were looking at the state at the project. The adder is the state 5%. So this will cost us about $3,600, I believe, from city money. This is for the crosswind runway that is being planned out at the airport. That's a multi-year project. This is step one of that project, is to get the environmental review done. And so recommendation from the engineers is, and staff, is to approve this grant agreement for the 95 and 5% project split.
Any questions from the council? Does the 5% come out of the general fund? Go ahead.
I think it's coming out of the airport budget, actually.
All right. Okay, that actually is a resolution. Okay.
I would introduce the resolution.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Marv, for introducing that resolution on the 2023 State Airport Environmental Assessment Grant Agreement, and a second by Dennis. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Nelson.
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Quaid.
Yes.
Esplin.
Yes.
Okay, next on the item is a state appropriation update. There's a resolution in the packet that I know a couple of our staff members have worked very hard on over the past, I don't know, it seems like 2 months. Steve, you want to give an update on this and what this all entails?
I think at the last meeting, we had talked about we were going to Farm Fest to visit with the governor on this to see if we could get it moving a little quicker. Mayor Jones, myself, and Tiffany Lamb, EDA Director, did get up there. We did have an audience with the Commissioner of Revenue, Paul Marquardt. We talked to Ag Commissioner Thom Peterson, and also we did get about 10 minutes with Governor Walz. The message from the governor to the Department of Revenue was to get this going, make it happen, and ask them
By
to
the end of the week.
by the end of that week, which is, they said, 48 hours. So that was a Wednesday. So on Friday that same week, Tiffany and I and the apartment developers were on a webinar with state officials, about a dozen state officials, for 3+ hours, trying to work out a path forward. At the end of those rather lengthy discussions, the path forward will be that the state is going to allow repayment of debt. So essentially what is going to, and that's on the Windom apartments, it's on the housing, that's where the sticking point was. Because they had some bills that they had outstanding. The state did not want to pay bills that had already been incurred, which is a retroactive issue for them. They also had some issues with prevailing wage, things like that. And so we were trying to work through the mechanics of all of that. So the state did pretty much change a little bit and allow this repayment of debt. So what's going to occur is the apartment developers are going to come up internally with some additional financing. They are going to pay those expenses that were incurred in arrears. They are then going to submit that pay request to the city as debt repayment. So the developers will pay the bills, and the bills will be paid off. That will be via some kind of promissory note with themselves, essentially, or their private financer. They'll turn that in, and then we'll request that money from the state, and then the city will just be the conduit for which that then gets paid off. So that is the path forward that we're working on. We are still waiting for the state grant agreement to come. At that time, they said it would take them about 2 weeks to get that coming. So we don't have anything for this meeting. We have yet to see a draft of that grant agreement. We are working on our loan documents with the housing developers. We have had that underway for a couple of weeks. Their attorney's reviewing, city attorney's been reviewing. We'll also share that information with state once it gets finalized. We did talk with the EDA board on Monday at that meeting to update them where this was at, and so that is the path we're heading down at this time. But it seemed fairly straightforward on the monies for the PFA to pay that portion of that wastewater treatment plant debt. That was pretty straightforward. And the dollars that would potentially go to job creation down the line seem to be fairly straightforward. We'll probably have to tighten that up when those dollars get released, but at this time they're good with the kind of earmarking that for future job creation. So we're hoping
With PIP.
with premium Iowa pork, or however that's going to go. So what the action this evening is we're asking you for is part of the state's request is they've got a resolution. We had submitted a resolution asking for that $18 million originally. The state has their own resolution in their format that they would like us to approve. It basically reiterates the $13 million amount in the appropriation, $10 million for the housing, $2 million for the PFA loan, which is the wastewater plant, and $1 million for recruitment, including selecting a new purchaser of the processing plant and job creation. We have these same conditions with state for deed. We have the Semstone redevelopment grant. We've had BDPI grants in the past, so this is nothing that's out of the ordinary. It's essentially a resolution in their format asking for that specific amount of money and citing the statutory provision that was awarding us that money. So that's the action tonight at this point.
Steve, where are we at? Are they still building out there on the apartments? Have they all come to a halt, or is it?
They do have a staff person there that's kind of also overseeing it, so that nothing happens to it in the meantime. It's kind of one of their general contractors has staff out there. If they can get people to come in and do stuff, they're finding their subs. If they have time to come and do something and are willing, then they are doing a few things. But, you know, a lot of those folks haven't been paid for months, and it's tough to get them out there to do anything. So work has slowed down considerably, but they do have somebody on site.
Okay, council action on that resolution.
I'll make a motion to accept the state appropriation update resolution.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Scott. Who introduced that state appropriation update resolution? Scott, didn't I say that? Scott and Jim. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, ask for a roll call.
Esplin.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Quaid.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Grunig.
Yes.
Okay, that carries. Personnel, Scott's up again. It's nice to see that he has a hiring recommendation.
Scott Peterson, Police Chief. In your package, you have a memo from me requesting that Andrew Kinnitz be hired to the vacant position of police officer. Andrew graduated from honors from Minnesota State Mankato, and he has previous experience with the cities of North Mankato and Mountain Lake, and he's familiar with our town here. So we would ask your approval.
Council action, please.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion by Dennis, second by Jenny to approve the request of the chief to hire the new officer to fulfill the duties as a new police officer to our force. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. We are one away.
One time. And you're looking forward to it. Yep. Okay, sounds good. Liquor store clerk, hiring recommendation. Before John gets here, is there a motion to, no.
Guess I don't get the same welcome Scott does. John Nelson, liquor store manager. I'm here to ask the city council to hire Mara Hawkinson Dunsey as a non-union part-time liquor store clerk. Last month we had an opening and we advertised for the available position. We had 5 applicants. We did hire one last meeting. It is my recommendation to hire Mara as a backup or on-call person to help fill potential voids in the schedule, such as upcoming vacations, illnesses, and with school starting up, I got a couple staff that cut back their hours during school hours. So to have an extra person is nice, reaching into holidays and things like that. So my recommendation is to hire her at $12.50 per hour with a 6-month review, where she could potentially go to $13.25. All the wages are in accordance with the non-union part-time scale approved at the January 17th meeting.
Is there a motion to approve that request?
I'll make such a motion.
And I'll second.
Motion Scott, second Jenny, to fulfill the liquor store clerk hiring recommendation as presented by John. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. And that carries. Thank you. Fuel tank replacement project, contractor payment. Jason is going to come up while he's on his way. He'll give us an update, of course, on how this is going. We do have a $16,576.26, and that is the final. So apparently things went well. Okay, here's the report.
All right. The project went well. I mean, we got to substantial completion very quickly. Contractor seemed to start dragging his feet after he got that far. So, I mean, it's taken a long time to get our punch list completed, and then for him to get all his paperwork back, you know, with subs being paid and all that such. So, but we're finally there. I know Cheryl will be very happy to get this cleaned up off the books. So we had this morning at the commission meeting, and they approved to go ahead with the payment.
I would make a motion to approve the fuel tank replacement project final payment.
I'll second it.
Motion by Marv, second by Scott, to approve the final payment to Minnesota Petroleum Service Incorporated in the amount of $16,576.26. Any comments? Any questions from the council? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Next, contractor payment.
Next contractor payment is to IES for the construction of transmission line in the amount of $221,159.83.
How about an update? What does that include?
Well, let's just say I would expect this to be much higher, being that almost all of their poles, all of their equipment, everything is on site, and they have put quite a few man hours in already. So, I mean, being this is almost a $3 million project, and they seem to be a lot further ahead than $200-some thousand. But all in all, it's they've hit some snags. We had to wait for some poles, some of the big laminate poles. Wait for specialized equipment for putting in some of the steel pole that will be coming in the 21st. They'll be getting that 25-foot deep by 7-foot hole dug for the concrete footing for the steel pole over by United Prairie. Today was kind of a big day. They had the crane and what we call pressure digger, which digs these big round holes rather quickly. So they managed to get a couple of the big laminates set on 60 where it crosses across Highway 60. One of the biggest ones they set today was 92 feet, weighing in at 27,000 pounds. So, not the biggest laminate poles I've ever set, but they're pretty big. So, one other note is Saturday, August 26th, we are looking at we're going to go on to generation for a little while, overnight, 1 a.m., not expecting any problems. Notified a few of the local vendors that have refrigeration and such if something would go wrong, but we've kind of worked it out that we should only be on generation for between an hour and a half and 3 hours. So at that time of night, not a whole lot of load, easily covered with generation. So. It's technically Saturday morning, 1 a.m. Saturday morning, and then potentially, I don't know if we're still going to need the outage, but there was potentially another one set up for the 27th at the exact same time, but I think we've worked it out to where we can just do the one and keep it down to 3 hours after doing some more looking into depth. So.
Okay.
And then we should be tied in on one of them, completely done, and then they'll start on the other one, and we should have to only do generation one more time to put the tie in between the two circuits. But once again, it should just be a short 3-hour generation run. So.
Okay, does everybody understand all that? How it all gets tied together? I know we have one councilman that does. Right, Marv? Yep. Yep. So Marv, what do you think? Should we approve this bill?
Yeah, we definitely should. There's evidence of it all over town, so it's pretty impressive, some of it.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I would make the motion to pay the bill.
I'll second that.
Motion Mars, second Scott, to pay payment number 1 in the amount of $221,159.83 to IES Commercial Incorporated. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. And that motion carries. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Okay, new business. Before we get to budget workshop dates, let's tackle the emerald ash borer or shade tree component of that grant, or whatever you're going to go after, John. I was in Steve's office this morning and John came in and asked for more money once again.
This wasn't more money. Cottonwood County Soil and Water has a 2023 relief grant request for application. I'd like the council to give them the okay to go ahead and pursue this. It's an $80,000 to $100,000 grant, 100% funded and everything, if everything works out. For the emerald ash borer that's going to be coming in, it's already over by Mountain Lake and everything, and it's just a matter of time before it hits here.
John, it's apparent from anyway on their website, it said you have several years to use this too, if needed, right?
It's a 3-year deal. So yes, it covers taking the tree down, grinding the stumps and everything, and tree replacement. And we just kind of gotta keep an idea of what we got going on and everything, and then it's a reimbursement. So like say if we get the grant, it's 100%. We don't, what's that? No match. Yep, no local match.
And my other thing that I think I understood correctly is that this could be boulevard trees, it could be park trees, just not private.
Correct.
property.
It's anything in the city limits. It's for the municipalities and everything. Mountain Lakes, they're trying to do one for Mountain Lake and Windom, so.
Sounds good. Council have questions? Need anything more? 100% grant sounds good to me if we can take care of some of this potential emerald ash borer.
I would make a motion to approve applying for this grant.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion from Jenny, second by Scott, to approve this grant request, application process. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Under old business, I don't know, I must have missed it on the agenda, but I thought for sure that the deer permit application stuff would be on here. That was on the city website. Anybody catch that, or was that in the? Yeah, I seen it. I just didn't know if we wanted to mention that tonight. I'll leave that up. Budget workshop, sorry, okay.
And my dates are wrong.
I seen that. Budget workshop date, Steve.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I will lead with telling you that the dates I had in the memo are wrong. I was off a year. I opened up my 2022 book to see what dates you met, and I'm like, okay, this day, this day, this date, and then used that same calendar to come up with the dates and realized I was a day off. So Mayor mentioned he was in this morning. I think one of the dates might not work for you. The second week, you said, is a board meeting week, so that October 11th date the mayor would like to kind of avoid. But before we get to the dates, I guess I kind of want to know how you want to have the budget discussions. Do you want to break them up into, like last year, like the memo indicated, we had 3 kind of pieces. We had general funds, which are the tax supported, like police, street, fire, those types. Enterprise funds, which are electric, water, sewer, that generate their own revenues and are self-supporting. And then then we have the non-enterprise funds. They're business quasi-activities, kind of like community center, arena. They do raise some revenue, but not enough to pay for their operations. So there's really kind of 3 different categories. And so that's what we did last year, is we just broke them into 3 categories. We've done it before where they've had 2 meetings. I think you had 1 year that all you did is discuss capital. You didn't have any of the operational discussions. They can, for the council members that have been on for a while, they can get to be lengthy meetings, and Jenny's good about bringing treats, so I'll put that plug in for that. But the council did break them up into 3 meetings last year, just to kind of try to keep them to 3 to 4 hour rather than 5 or 6 hour marathon meetings, so. First, I guess I'd kind of like to know what your thoughts are, if you want to do, you know, what kind of format, how many dates, and then we can come up with dates.
Steve, you mentioned that Cheryl could tackle one of these of the enterprise funds.
Cheryl's gonna do one of them for the enterprise funds, yep.
Because Steve has some time.
September 27th, or 26th it would be, but, yep, she'll take care of that one.
Excuse me, you said September 27th?
26th is the correct date.
Okay.
I had 27th in the memo, but I was off by a day. Those are the off Tuesdays, and that's kind of what you did last year, because the council members are usually around for the first and third Tuesdays, so you don't really book too many things on Tuesday nights. So the council had selected the second and fourth Tuesdays of the months, you know, to do for the budget meetings. Now, you certainly can use any day of the week you wish, but that was just a starting point.
And that's the one that you're gonna be gone, though?
Which one?
On the 26th.
26th, correct.
Yes, as I may be also. But if you wanted to go over enterprise funds with Cheryl, I think the council could handle that easy enough.
Yeah. Do you want to do 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 1 meeting?
Well, I think
Kim?
3 meetings is always good. I think it's hard to go through all those numbers and all that information in a long period of time, so if we can break it up to 3 meetings, that'd be the best.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 3 meetings is helpful for department heads too, in case they have conflicts.
Are you okay with the one with Cheryl then on the 27th?
26th.
26th.
I'm confused.
Who's on first?
Get restarted, Steve. Okay, that's one. Recommendations for the other ones then, are we just off a date?
September
that'd be-
26th would be the 4th Tuesday of September. And that would be the first meeting and most likely enterprise funds that night.
Yep,
The second meeting of the month, the one that I had scheduled for, I had the 11th on the memo, but it's really the 10th. You've got.
I don't like that day, but
Yeah, you've got board that
My
night,
stuff.
so. Does anybody have other days that week that would work, or, I'm
No,
sorry, the
my
next,
week
the
is
next
shot.
week, the whole week, yep, the next week, or the week prior.
do we have anything coming up on council meeting night? There's not a short one of these, is there?
That's up to you, Mayor.
Can I just throw out and suggest, could we look at doing 2 nights in a row, like the 23rd, 24th? Do a Monday, Tuesday, back to back, and just,
23rd, 24th.
23rd,
October.
24th of October.
yeah. Because that other one was gonna be the 24th
Yep.
of October, the,
23rd, 24th is fine, 23rd is
that
hospital
okay with-
board meeting. But
Perfect, I guess.
23rd, 24th?
the hospital, you might have most of your stuff figured out by October 23rd.
All right. That's a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Tuesday.
Or I thought you,
Okay.
okay, thank you. Okay. Or you could go 24th, 25th. I don't want to confuse it. I mean, if you want to make the hospital board. Okay, all right, that's what we
And then we usually meet at the community center and probably start at around 6. Is that okay with you all? Okay.
Okay,
Tim, write us down.
okay.
Okay.
So Tim, do you have it open for us? Hope so. Okay, it's already on the agenda already. Okay, now deer permit, Steve. Old business. we'll go on to deer permits. Steve, I see it on the website. Is everything accurate there?
I believe so. So the DNR did approve our special deer archery hunt. Thanks to the mayor for getting a hold of Mr. Nyberg at the DNR. We hadn't heard anything on it, and he asked me, and we hadn't heard anything, so he gave Brian a call and said, "Oh, the DNR posted it on our website. Didn't you see it?" Well, we're not checking it every day. So I got a hold of Officer Koppenrud. Devin is going to kind of be the point person on this. Fortunately, we had some things that we had shared from City of Blue Earth, I think, who has also did a hunt. So we're able to adapt those, like the application and the letter, the rules, things like that. And so what DNR approved us for was 15, up to 15 permits and 2 antlerless deer per hunter. So we put all the information on the city website, that the applications are there. I would encourage people to download that information, the application, and there is a $20 fee for it, and that's basically to cover our time to do the proficiency testing that we're required to do and would want to do. The 2 sites that we had picked out, submitted initially to DNR, was to look at Mayflower Park and the landfill. And so what we're doing is we're starting to take those applications in, get those, see how many applications we got, and then see how that will work with spreading people out, with the hunters out. And if we end up being real crammed, then we may or may not look at Ringel Park, which is one of them that the council was interested in, but that's kind of on the back burner. We're kind of walk a little bit before we run with it, and so that's kind of our plan. September 16th through I believe the 20th or the 31st of December is the deer season, and that's the DNR wants the hunts to match what the current antlerless season is. So I talked to John at the parks. I think Park and Rec talked about it. We're going to close Mayflower Park and get a sign up so we can, let people obviously know what's going on there. So.
Jenny?
I think just one comment, Park and Rec, there was a few people that said, they really didn't like that the park would close early because that's September. People could still be using the park. So just one thing just to point out that was commented on. But I think, it's only one of our parks, we're not looking at doing more than one, and then the old landfill, so I think that's more doable. But just pointing out there was a few people concerned about closing the park early.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, everybody sign up to take your proficiency test. Anybody can use crossbows now, I understand. Youth, anybody?
I believe we were still planning on using the DNR rule that was in place at the time, which is persons that are senior citizens or have disabilities. That's what we applied for. That's what we're going to continue with for this year. Yep.
I'm all for that. I was eligible. So, let's see. Okay. Any other old business the council wish to entertain? Okay, council comments. Scott, you want to go first?
Just a quick comment, and as far as this open meeting for the hospital, I encourage anybody has any kind of concern or any kind of comment, please come down and share it with us, because our voice is being heard, but your voice is being needed. So we need you guys to come down here and talk and tell us how you feel and how you want to vote on this, because it's not just it's our obligation, but it is your city and your hospital. So if there's something you concern yourself with, please, I urge you, please come down and take advantage of this situation and talk to us. Thank you.
Jenny?
I don't have anything tonight.
I said Jenny. Jim?
I just second what Scott said. We really need the input, so get as many people down here as you can. And like I said, I hope we get more chairs.
Marv?
The landscaping was completed at the memorial site yesterday, and today John and his very efficient crew came and spread out some of the black dirt and hauled the rest away. So we're getting really close to being completed.
Very good, thank you, Marv. Dennis?
I was just gonna say what Scott said, and I think Scott said it well, so that's all I have.
Steve?
Just thanks to everybody, hospital board, council, for going through all the discussions that you're having. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of moving pieces to it and a lot of different things to look at. It can be confusing for folks. The public sees a lot of projects going on out there, the big electric projects. We're talking about the liquor store project, we're talking about a hospital bond, we're talking about, streets and budgeting and all these other things, state appropriations. There's just a lot of things going on right now, so, but there's a lot of good resources for information, but thanks for keeping up with everything.
Well, and actually, I wanted to thank you, Steve, for keeping up with everything. Was my comment. He started rattling off all the things that we have going on in our community right now this morning, and it took him like 2 minutes just to mention the names of all these things. So it is busy at City Hall. It's busy for council members. Thank you all for keeping in the tune with everything, and that's why you're voted in. So we'll listen to the public on the upcoming meeting with that hearing. And I too would encourage people to come and comment or learn, ask their questions. I don't know if we can answer them, but sometimes we don't think of it all to ask. So I think that'd be great. I would say on any meeting like that that's open for comment, you can submit written comments. I'm not necessarily do comments that are calling the council. That stuff is not verbatim. You want to be careful with that. But I do think written comments and by whom and their address, that sort of thing can be submitted as comment. So that would be welcome. We'll read them here if the public doesn't want to come in person. So just a lot of moving parts with that, right? I think that's, everybody's in agreement. There's just a lot of stuff going on with that right now, and a lot of stuff in other areas. So once again, thanks for keeping up with all that, Steve, even though you got your dates wrong for so anyway. All right, I think we're good. We'll adjourn by unanimous consent. Thank you all.